And I want to tell you, there is no member of Congress that I can think of with a better attitude than the member who Peace Action voted as the most anti-war, pro-social justice member of Congress. Please welcome our progressive champion, Gwen Moore.
Back in the 2nd Congressional District of Wisconsin. Back here on the hallowed grounds of Bob LaFollette, Fighting Bob. I mean, it sends chills down my spine to think about this progressive governor, member of Congress, brother, who years after his life and death has continued to weigh heavily on our hearts here. So much so that every year we gather here, thanks to Ed Garvey and the likes of all of the organizing committee, we gather here at the South County Festival in the 2nd Congressional District to reinvigorate ourselves to the principles of democracy. As Granny D said, democracy is not something we have, it's something we do. And let me tell you something. I got my flag earrings on here today because it doesn't escape me that the Fighting Bob Fest is occurring on September 11th. And I'm not going to let nobody out-patriotic me today. I remember the 3,000 Americans who lost their lives on September 11th, all of the brave firefighters and police officers that ran into those burning buildings trying to save people. But I'm also remembering the 5,000 troops who've died since September 11th and have lost their lives in pursuit of whatever. That's a place to edit the tape. Well, let me say something. Here we are once again on the eve of another election. Another opportunity in our democracy to shape the kind of government we want and don't want to have. And this year, the Republicans, every year they got some gimmick. You know, sometimes it's, homophobia. Sometimes it's just straight up racism. Sometimes it's, anti-stem cell. This year, they're selling just pure, unadulterated fear of everything. Fear. False evidence appearing real. That's a nice way of saying they're lying about everything. And they think that by lying and selling us this false evidence appearing real, they're hoping and praying the goal is to try to keep us from going to the polls. Because we have proven in recent history, in 2006, which was an off-election year, and in 2008, that our hopes and aspirations can trump fear, and that we can win. And that there are more of us, including those people who didn't come out to the stadium today. There's more of us than there are of theirs. But fear is a very powerful thing. Psychologists will tell us that it's one of the first things that little kids learn. How to terrorize their parents in the grocery store so they can get what they want. You don't give me those chocolate toasties, I'm going to hold my breath. I'm not going to be your friend. Fear is a very powerful tool. And you know, the Republicans are serving up poison. And instead of Kool-Aid, they're serving up tea, poison tea. Drink this poison tea so that we can once again prevail. Now, I happen to bring a little tea with me here today, a little formula. And I ain't going to stay up here too long, I promise you. But I just want to give you the recipe for how to lose an election. Because I know everybody at Bob Fest wants to know how to do this. How to lose a midterm election. What is in the tea that they're serving up? Well, they got some secret ingredients here. Here's my cup. Here's my cup here. And the first thing you put in this recipe, this cauldron of fear, false evidence appearing real, is tax cuts. Sounds good, doesn't it? Come on now, this works. How does that sound? Let's give tax cuts to people. Even though we got this huge deficit that they created, let's give everybody tax cuts. Let's give tax cuts to the top 1% of Americans. Well, you stir a little bit of that up. It sounds good to people. How to lose an election, get everybody running around talking about they want tax cuts. These people I don't know if they don't know math or what. They not in the top 1%. You're going to have to tell these people that. It's going to be heartbreaking news. But if we were to give tax breaks to the top 1%, this would account for like $100,000 for these folks. Oprah and Gail have an extra $100,000 to go shopping. Warren Buffett, and it would count for $680 billion over 10 years. So how in the world, that's a lie, y'all. That's false evidence appearing real. That you can somehow cut the deficit, but give $680 billion to the wealthiest 1% of Americans and still in the same breath talk about reducing the deficit. But they say we need to give tax cuts to corporations as well. I saw people on the commercial about let's not give tax cut. Let's not tax the energy companies. That's some more fear. Saw this black lady saying, some people are just barely getting by. What's she talking about barely getting by? BP? You see, that's false evidence appearing real. They poured some of that up, some of that tea, got the girlfriend drinking tea. Some people just barely holding on. This is a bad time to raise taxes. And it's all based on the trickle-down theory that if we give these corporations money, that somehow it will just trickle down. Now, we didn't want to give unemployment compensation to unemployed people. And, all kind of economists say that you get your best bang for your buck by giving it to unemployed people because they will consume and add to the economy. No, their theory is that you give it to the wealthiest, you give it to the corporations, and somehow you just let that tea trickle down the throats of the unemployed. All right. Second thing they want to do, let's add a little bit more ingredients to the tea here. This is their promise to repeal health care, health insurance reform. Add a little bit of that to it. They say the fear the false evidence is that the premiums are going to go up, that we're all going to be taxed for the 36 million uninsured slackers, and that this is socialism. And that is something that we're serving up for you to drink. And that's another way to lose a midterm election, to believe that. First of all, health insurance premiums have already been going up. Major corporations can't afford to provide health insurance for themselves. I just talked just yesterday to a young man and his partner who had partnership benefits, and now they have to pay $2,800 a month for COBRA. $2,800 for two people, and the health care bill is not even in place. The health care is 1/6 of our economy already. So the false, and we pay for people who are uninsured anyway. They come and bleed all over the emergency rooms, and they charge us for that anyway. That's another lie, people. That's false evidence appearing real. How about this one? How about this lie? We've got to return to an ownership society. America was built on rugged individualism and private property and ownership. Sounds good. Let's put a little pinch of that in the brew. What that means is that we are in an ownership society, and guess what? You own your own. We have a good friend of mine, very smart young man. I serve on the budget committee with him, Paul Ryan. Very nice young man. Helps me with all my bags on the plane. I got that arthritis. But he wants to give us vouchers for Medicare. He wants to privatize Social Security. And our would-be governor, Scott Walker, says that Badger Care is wasteful spending. People need to be on their own. That they don't need government intervention. They don't need health care. They don't need Social Security. And you see that the Tea Party is endorsing candidates like Rand Paul and others who basically want to repeal everything, that even smacks of democracy and sharing and looking out for one another. Don't drink the tea, people. You remember the Kool-Aid? This tea is just as lethal. All right. I'm like the Baptist preacher here. I ain't gonna be long. I'm hurrying to a close. Another important ingredient to get a little extra twang in here is to repeal the Wall Street reform and let the banks go back to gambling our pension funds. Some of you guys had never even heard of AIG before the big collapse of our economy. AIG is in everything. It's invested in everything. And the Republicans say that we need to go back to allowing Wall Street to do business as usual. As I hurry to a close, a fifth ingredient, this is extremely important. Boehner announced yesterday or day before yesterday that he's proposing a 22%. He said if we get back in, we're going to have a 22% cut in discretionary spending. $102 billion worth of discretionary spending, and it's going to promote job creation and reduce the deficit. Oh my God, that sounds good. That's like the sugar in the tea. But what does that really mean? a 22% cut in discretionary spending. That excludes war spending. He still wants us to spend over $1 trillion on Iraq and Afghanistan. That would not be included in that cut. And it would provide cuts and stuff like education, housing, all of the programs and services that benefit us as citizens. This is what he wants to do. And it would not promote job creation and reduce the deficit at all, because it would reduce our ability to spend. We wouldn't have any money, in other words. You know, all the grannies out there would not be able to go buy stuff for their grandbabies if this proposal were to go through. You know, and these are the same Republicans that took a surplus left by President Clinton and turned it into a deficit over the last 10 years. Let me get to one of my favorite ingredients. Folks, we need to take our country back. Let me put a triple dose. And you know, the take our country back is a mixture of xenophobia, racism, homophobia. You got the black man in the White House, the browning of America, all the Mexicans who are here illegally because employers brought them here to be slaves. Burn a few Korans so that you can, what do you call that, cooks out here, when you want to singe it a little bit? Yeah, kind of, you know, you just want to kind of braise it a little bit with burned Korans. So all that comes under, we're going to take our country back. And last but not least, I saw it in a sign on the road up here. How is that hope and change thing going for you? So let's add a little despair and stick it with the Bush decade to make our poison tea here. You know, this is all false evidence appearing real. The only way they can defeat us is if we participate in our own oppression. We gotta participate, folks. We gotta participate. You know, it was one of the most heartbreaking pieces of history that I learned about the black slave trade. Yeah, some of them Africans had to help them white folks enslave us. It just didn't happen by itself. If we don't vote and drag kicking and screaming like our lives depend on it, the way we did in '08, if we don't do that in 2010, they have an opportunity to shove this tea down our throats. We got to get fired up. We got to believe that we need to do it. And let me end by quoting one of our favorite presidents who served during a time that was very similar to where we're at now. During the Great Depression, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, in his first inaugural address, he said, "This great nation will endure as it has endured, will revive and will prosper. So first of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror, which paralyzes needed efforts to convert retreat into advance. Let us advance, Democrats, on to victory. Right on." Don't drink the tea, y'all. Don't drink the tea.